In the ever-shifting landscape of British politics, few parties have emerged with as much ambition and raw energy as Reform UK. Created from the ashes of the Brexit Party, it has been a beacon for those disillusioned by the political establishment. Yet now, amid its greatest moment of success, Reform faces a critical crossroads. The party's very future is under threat, and it's being torn apart by internal strife, most notably the bitter feud between its charismatic leader Nigel Farage and one of its rising MPs, Rupert Lowe. This is not merely an internal dispute over policy or direction. It is a fundamental battle for the soul of Reform UK, a clash that will determine whether the party can evolve from a protest movement into a credible governing force or whether it will disintegrate into chaos. The conflict between Farage and Lowe is not a trivial squabble. It speaks to the heart of what Reform UK has always been, an outsider's revolt against the establishment. But in its rise, it has found itself at a crossroads. Farage, the tireless architect of the party's success, built it on populist ideals, national sovereignty, a hard stance on immigration, and a fierce opposition to net-zero policies. These positions struck a chord with millions of voters who felt betrayed by the establishment, especially in areas traditionally dominated by the Conservatives. Yet, in the process, Farage has constructed a party entirely dependent on his larger-than-life persona. Reform UK has no clear structure beyond Farage's image, and it lacks the professional infrastructure to evolve into a real contender for power. This is precisely the issue raised by Rupert Lowe, who dares to challenge Farage's vision. Lowe, with his business acumen and strategic mind, understands the weight of leadership in the modern political age. His criticism is sharp and, frankly, necessary. Reform UK, in its current state, is not a serious governing force, it is a protest party. It cannot afford to remain a one-man show for much longer. If the party is to move beyond the fringes and into the mainstream, it must build a cohesive policy platform, establish a robust frontbench, and present itself as a party capable of governing, not just opposing. Farage's response to Lowe has been nothing short of dismissive. With his characteristic bravado, he has shot down Lowe's critique as utterly wrong. But this is where Farage's fatal flaw lies. His approach may have worked in the short term, tapping into the frustrations of working-class voters who feel left behind by the political elite, but it is simply not sustainable. Farage's brand of populism thrives on conflict and antagonism, and while that can stir up passion among his base, it risks alienating those who crave substance and stability. Without clear leadership, a detailed policy agenda, and a vision that transcends personal vendettas, Reform UK will remain trapped in a perpetual state of protest, never advancing into a real alternative for government. The truth is that Farage is, in many ways, a victim of his own success. His forceful personality and unyielding style have made him a political giant. But that same forcefulness has created an over-reliance on one individual. The party cannot, and should not, exist solely to serve the whims of a single leader. It is a political entity that must grow beyond the Farage brand if it is to be taken seriously. This is what Lowe understands, and it is what many Reform supporters are beginning to realize as well. A party that relies on one man to carry its every message is a party that will eventually implode when that man falters or falls out of favor. What Reform UK needs now is not more spectacle but more substance. It needs a coherent strategy, a frontbench with credible figures capable of presenting themselves as future ministers. Lowe's vision, one of professionalism and pragmatism, is precisely what the party requires if it is to rise above its populist roots and truly become a force in British politics. The party must stop trying to be a protest movement and start acting like a governing party, because without this transformation, it will fall into obscurity. The danger here is that Farage's personal brand is so entwined with the party's identity that any threat to his leadership is seen as a threat to the party's survival. But this is exactly the thinking that will doom Reform UK. It is time for Farage to make a choice. Will he cling to his leadership and risk the party's collapse? Or will he recognize that a true political movement requires more than just a charismatic figurehead? Reform UK must stop being defined by a single personality and start being defined by a clear set of policies and a vision for Britain that extends far beyond Farage's own ambitions. If Reform UK is to succeed in 2025 and beyond, it must rise above the squabbles that currently plague it. It must embrace a more strategic approach to politics, one that allows it to build a diverse, talented team capable of leading the country. The stakes are incredibly high. The British electorate is frustrated, tired of the same old party politics, and Reform UK has the potential to capture that frustration and turn it into something productive. But only if it stops behaving like a protest party and starts acting like a real political force. In the end, the crisis within Reform UK is not just a fight for leadership, it is a fight for the future of the party. Farage must decide whether he wants to remain a figurehead in a protest movement, or whether he is willing to step aside and allow the party to grow into something more substantial. The party cannot afford to remain stuck in its current form if it is to be anything more than a flash in the pan. The time to evolve is now, before it's too late. Reform UK must decide what kind of party it wants to be, and whether it has the vision and discipline to make that transformation. If not, its moment in the spotlight will be a fleeting one.